think we've said the opening prayer already, right? Yes, so we can have our seats. So we are welcome again to this afternoon's program. We can see on the screens the Trauma-Informed Church. I think this is a very good program. People are going through a lot that they cannot even talk about, and there's a lot happening with people in our church, and sometimes they can't even talk about it. We spoke about it at Divine Service at length. But this afternoon program is to help us as a church to know what people are going through and know the best way to help them and assist. Because if we don't talk about this, it can lead to other issues. So I think this is a very good program and the right platform. So as we listen, let's jot down our questions, and then at the right time we can ask them. So to lead out this afternoon's program, we are blessed to have Prince Anankeni. I'm sure we all know him, right? Yeah, he's not a stranger to Bethel. I'm seeing some people shaking their head. So Prince, you're welcome to Bethel again. And Prince is a clinical psychologist. So he has a lot of experience and he will tell us a lot. I hope we will listen and then avail ourselves. And then at the right time, he will take our questions. So Prince.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Happy Sabbath. Doc, am I allowed to walk or how to? Okay. Happy Sabbath. Yes, so my name is Prince. For those who don't know me, I've been here a few times. I worship at Prince Emmanuel, so I'm in the district. Okay. Now, this week, or today is End It Now Emphasis Day. We are looking at ending violence, and as Adventists, we stand for this very important message to end all forms of violence, to end all forms of abuse. And it's fitting that this afternoon we'll have this discussion on trauma. So we'll leave here today having informed ourselves as a church about trauma and having armed ourselves with very important details as to how to live with trauma, how to process trauma, how to help people with trauma going forward. I tend to speak very fast, so in the event I do so, please just flag me so I slow down so we can all understand. Now, this is a discussion, and you're all experienced men and women here, so we'll be doing a lot of the talking together. So I'll be passing the mic around, asking a lot of questions, getting us to give our comments, contributions, questions, and all that. Okay, first question. Who has not eaten this week? Who has not eaten this week? So you've all eaten. Okay. Who has been admitted in the hospital this week? Who has been admitted in the hospital this year? This year, nobody has been admitted in the hospital. You are very healthy. Must be nice. Okay, I can speak Ghana, but my cheese is terrible. Okay. In Ghana, okay. My Ghana is still 2x2, but we'll manage. If I didn't get this year, no money, hospital, no money I admit in the hospital. Why not admit in the hospital this year? Okay. Please give the mic to her for me.
Well, I think it depends upon what I went there for. Because a lot of things went on there. And even my family's, let's say my family and families, they got to know that this is what I'm going to do. So many comments were made to frighten me. especially my own blood, my children, they will sit in front of me and look at me, then they will start crying. I say, oh, why do you people don't wish me something good that will glorify the Lord? So I ignore them. Whatever they are doing, I don't look at them. But it is the nurses who rather talk to me that I should have heart. I shouldn't blame them. It's with any other person. So by God's grace, his will was done, and I came back successfully.
Any other person want to share their experience? Mokonde Hospital this year, how it made him or her feel. Now you may be wondering why I'm asking that, because you're talking about trauma. Why am I asking about being in the hospital? Why am I asking about whether you've eaten or not? Now, we've all had this, it's called the elbow reflex. You may be doing something, then unknown to you, your elbow would hit the edge of a table, and then you feel a shock that shocks you. You can't explain the shock, and you are wondering, if my hand hits the table like this, can in nature table, mensabo table, and I don't feel like that. But then this elbow that has hit the table, the kind of feeling is different. And you are wondering why that is the case. Now, trauma is like that, and so your part of your body hits things at different times. Your head can hit the wall or table, your leg or anything, but then the part of your body that can touch a table or can hit the table and you feel it so much, it relates to how the experiences differ. And so the same thing, by experienced differently, can give you very different experiences. Now, what do I mean? Now, trauma can refer to any sudden changes that your body would find difficult to adjust. And those changes can be mental, they can be physical. And so, what I'm going to talk about today is to understand what trauma is to understand that there are lots of people going through trauma presently. And as a church, as women's ministries, as young ladies, as young men, and as men in the church, how do we identify these people and how do we help them in the church? 5 years ago, my mother was traveling. I come from Sandema. For those of you who know Sandema, it's after Bogatanga, you drive for like 45 minutes to 1 hour thereabouts and you go to Sandema. My mother was traveling to Sandema from Accra, and she used the night bus. And so by 2 a.m., 3 a.m., they had gotten to somewhere in between Sunyani and Tamale. There's a long stretch where you drive for minutes or hours. You won't see any houses or any settlements by the side of the road. And then ahead of their bus, they saw that another bus had been parked, and then the people in the bus had been made to lie down. So they got the hint that there was an armed robbery operation that was going on. And so quickly the driver wanted to make attempts and then turn around. But then there was a policeman in the bus, but he was a plainclothes man. He wasn't wearing a uniform. I think usually they do that when they are traveling. There's a police escort who is not wearing a uniform with them. And he was sitting beside my mother in the first seats. The seats are numbered, number 1, 2, 3, 4. So he was sitting beside my mother. And then he decided to get down from the bus to go and check what is going on. Not knowing a call had been made to police patrol, and so they're also on their way coming to see what's going on to stop the operation. Now, this policeman who was in the bus with my mother, for some reason, goes to stand in the middle of the road, and he sees the police car coming, so he's signaling his people. For some reason, they think he's one of the armed robbers, and then they gun him down. Now, this is something my mother saw live as it happened. Someone she had sat with in the car from Accra all the way to Kumasi to Kintampo, and had gotten where they had gotten to, seeing the person get down from the car to see what was going on, and then see the person's lifeless body and see the action of the bullets taking the life out of the person. My mother came home, and for weeks, she had to relive this trauma. And for a long while, she couldn't travel, even a short distance, because there's a feeling that it would happen again, or she gets a flashback. She thinks about what happened, and anytime she has to sit in a bus, or anytime she has to travel, it replays in her mind. Now, this is just one example of a traumatic situation. In our lives, there are so many different happenings, there are so many different events that can traumatize us. It could have happened when you were 5 years old, when you were 10 years old. You can be 60, 70 now, but then you still remember that thing very, very well. You still remember that thing so much. And so when someone mentions it, when someone hints at it, it reminds you of it. You feel very sad, you feel very down, and you feel traumatized all over again. We hear stories of people who get raped, and as a result of that, they're unable to make meaningful relationships with people of the opposite gender, because even when they are married, they see the man to be the figure of the person who raped them several years ago and all that. And so all these are things that happen. They may never happen in our lives in one way or the other. And they all relate to trauma. They all relate to changes that begin to make us think differently, begin to make us feel differently, feel very, very bad. Now, why is this important? And why, as a church, as Osu Bethel, do we need to know all this? Do we need to know about trauma and what to do regarding trauma? You think the focus of the church is to win souls to Christ. Now, if all the souls we win in the church are traumatized, how will they have the peace of mind to even worship? How will they have the peace of mind to even take a Bible to say they're going to tell others about Christ? If people are going through violence in their homes, if wives are beating their husbands or husbands are beating their wives, how can the same come to church and then do the work of God? And so that's why, although we are used to preaching the gospel from the pulpits, on a day as this, we get to advocate and talk to such social issues, such issues that take place in the family, so that people are made aware, people are reminded of the fact that in as much as we are Christians, these are things that happen that in the social environments we live in, we need to be mindful of, we need to grow out of, we need to be better off, we need to be better Christians, we need to be better believers, even as we study God's work. Now, what does it mean to be trauma-informed? Worldwide, there are millions of people who go through these forms of trauma, even on a daily basis. And for someone who has not eaten for a whole day, who has not eaten for a whole week, the trauma is different. I asked earlier if anyone has gone a whole week without eating. You all answered that you had eaten. Now imagine someone living in a war-torn country. Imagine someone living in a war-torn country. Happy days. Welcome. So imagine someone living in a war-torn country. Or imagine Mokoni, Heneyo, Ano, and for several weeks, for several days, in Akoni, Heneyo, Abon Binofiano, Jabanya Jipupu Economy, and for 1 day, 2 days, 1 week, in Akuake Bajipuni, and only Yano, Jile Mimpu. I only battle near. And so all these are things that happen. All these events are traumatic events that happen in people's lives. And so there's a need to recognize that when you pray for such people that wherever they are, God should provide for them. Because they are living in environments where, if for nothing, you get food to eat. But then how about these people who, for fear of even their own lives, they can't come out, and so they don't get anything to eat. They can't even feel the freshness of the air and even have the luxury to walk around and see what's going on in the world. Now I'll be taking the mic round again. This time, the first time our grandma spoke, so this time I'll need 2 or 3 others to talk. What do you do? Sorry. You want to say something?
Yeah, my name is Tambi, and I'm a victim of trauma and violence. And it has distorted my life. It has destabilized my Christian life. It has broken down a routine which I took over 12 years to set that gets me to pray from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. every day. It has broken my morale. This is trauma. And it is caused by, I would not say by people, I would blame myself, because my mother always told me, if something happens to you, you found yourself exactly where that thing happened to you. So I would blame myself for going through this, but I was serving God, I was doing the work of God. That's how I got affected. Now, people see people living their life every day, and they would not understand what each and everyone goes through after they gather and they separate. Some people have friends, some people don't. Some people are introverts, some are extroverts. Now the introverts, if you watch keenly, they have been affected. The extroverts, they have been affected. And those you can't identify if they are introverts or extroverts, I think these are the normal people. Anyone that is going to be putting up a front, because elders, adults in the church need to identify the young people and people that have been affected, that have been harassed, that have been dehumanized, those that have been pushed to the wall. And I don't know how to explain it. There is a trauma that comes after this shock. It is a shock. For example, I'll give, because I will not dive deep into the topic, but I'll give a few examples of, 2 examples of what I have faced that I think it has really brought me to a very big low that I don't even know. Sometimes I would have to smoke, sometimes I have to cry. And this, I'm 37 years, I'm a man, I'm male. And imagine at this age, sometimes I still have to just sit by myself and cry. I have to just wake up and run and just go somewhere where I can just be by myself and I don't know, breathe, because of the pain. And it's from the things that have been happening from the same settings that I've been visiting, these same churches, these same people that I interact with. They will shoot you with one sharp word, one sharp message, one sharp information. They will draw your brain to that direction and stick it there. And you would remain there, and you cannot move to your God-given goal. Now we need to identify these things and know how to treat it. As well, people going through trauma, you might just look at them. We are all humans. There is one thing, God came for us. God came, everything for us, humans on this earth. We have to be happy. God explained love. We have to love so that we can be happy. We have to do more good things. Now, trauma is the other side, is the bad thing. Is the bad thing that is happening to us the trauma and the shock is the bad thing that is happening to us. It's not the thing that God is planning for us long time before we came. We are now struggling because, for example, I would give an example. I was in a relationship and I separated from this relationship because there was violence. I would be the person to lift a finger. But it would be the other person that would push me to the wall, to a point where there is nothing what I can do than to push them away from me. That's how I've lifted a finger, and then I start getting all this trauma and shock. I've touched somebody, I've hit somebody. This is another person. I don't like when somebody hit me. I don't even like if somebody touch me if they don't know me or if they don't ask. And I've hit somebody. I've molested somebody. I start eating my brain up. I don't know. It's a sin. It's a bad thing because I have to do but good, and I have done a bad thing. So this is the beginning. And now I'll give a vivid example. I am a workaholic. For those who can check on the internet, you find many things flying in the internet, from Vindication, Align Poverty, Moringa Cameroon, many Pathfinder trips. You'll find whole heap of things flying out there, books, whole heap of books that I write. Some I don't even put my name, I put different people's name, commemoration and respect and honor. You have loads of these materials flying out there. This is what I do. Now, I run into these things because I have to run and find a way to cure myself. Not just to cure myself, to cure other people, because the pain, and I sit down with all the information. You cannot go now and hurt somebody. You cannot blame somebody. You have to rely on God. So we have to now understand what we should be doing that these bad things cannot be happening to us. So now I run into this place and I find peace, but I would explain one of these issues. Being this kind of person, I've had a few relationships, got married first, and the issue in the relationship was I would have business partners and I would find out that my partner is always at home. She's not doing anything. She paints her nails, she makes her makeup and sleeps. She wants to be an air hostess. She has one interview a week. She never has the job. I'll go and see her off, pick her off from the air hostess job. She never has the job. She don't go anywhere. Yeah, I make a lot of money, good amount. Maybe we live in a 7-bedroom house, maybe gold-plated, maybe, I don't know. Everything is fine. I go to work 8 o'clock in the evening, come back at 8 o'clock in the morning. Everything is okay. There's enough money we can manage. But I realized that she pushes me to do things that she wants. She don't even think when I'm tired. She don't think the way she talks to me. Maybe she asks me to do things that I have to do. I know I have to do these things. She don't recognize that I'm tired. She pushes me. Sometimes she beats me, slaps me on the street. Now, we'll leave that to the side. We separated. This is where now I developed that shock from these slaps that my own woman would give me publicly on the streets, and I can't because of my culture, my behavior, my orientation, my education, my background, my heritage. There is things I would not do. So in respect to that, I had to separate with her. There would be instances where we would fight, I had to separate. Now, this was where it was. The slap on the street that never got forgotten. That because I was looking at some people and she slapped me, and why are you looking at them? And publicly, and she was commanding me to do things and I had to do it and I felt dehumanized. Now, I left this girl because it was a bad relationship. And I stayed alone for a long time, writing more books, writing movies, doing things so I can just cry and pray, things concerning God, biblical things, because that's the only way you can survive. I did these things for years. Then I finally found another girl that came my way. She came to be my assistant, somebody to translate my work, interpret my work, and try to edit what I do, because I write really quick. And when I write really quick, I don't have time to edit it. I just throw these things. I can write 10 books in a day and throw it up, and somebody needs to edit it. So she would be the ones editing these letters and all these things. She now came close to me, and we became friends, and girlfriend and boyfriend. It was reluctant. We stayed for like 2-3 months, and then this started happening because she didn't have where she would stay. She would have to come and stay in one of the rooms in my house. So it was a struggle. Now, this relationship as well, there was trauma because I would get angry.
Hello. Maybe we need to get somebody else. So if you can wind up. Oh, wind up and then we can. Are you finished?
I've said a lot.
Okay, thank you so much. Any other comments? Yes.
I'm forced to answer the question.
Ask me a question.
No, I'm forced to answer. I'm forced to answer the question. So, my question is this: is trauma really a new thing? Is it a new development in our societies today, or is it something that has always been there? Because in the olden days, I'm not that old, but you will not hear about trauma, and then now I hear another term: mental health. Are they one and the same? Are they new things that are happening in the world today? Is it because of something that we are doing or not doing? That's why we are having this. Because in the olden days, our fathers and our fathers before them did not talk about trauma and mental health. So is it a new phenomenon? And what may be causing it?
Thank you. So I have a question for you. To answer your question, I'm very Ghanaian, so it's a Ghanaian thing to answer questions with questions. Before 10 years ago, had you heard the term sciatica? Before 10 years ago, had you heard the word sciatica? So the sciatic nerve is a nerve that passes here. The nerve has been there for as long as humans have existed. But it's in recent times that we've gotten specialists in that particular area, and so they're making a lot of noise about it. And so now, everywhere on the TV and the radio, they have sciatic experts, and they sell drugs that can help you get better and all that. And so, to answer your question, trauma has been there for as long as humans have existed, because events have happened in their lives. I imagine the Israelites go for war and they keep losing. If you're a soldier and you go for war one time and you lose, but you don't die, you find a way home. And you go again and you lose and you find a way home. I'm not sure you want to go a third time. Having seen all your colleagues around you die and you find a way back home. And so the trauma has been there for years. The point is, the fact that we're not making noise about it in the past doesn't mean we shouldn't make noise about it now. And so as we learn and we grow and we develop as humans, we become better. You've seen that in the past, there was not much attention paid to it. And so people died not getting solutions to their problems. People died either by suicide or by the course of time because they're unable to manage their trauma well. They're unable to get good counsel. They're able to get good counsel as to how to manage their trauma. And so, yes, trauma has been there for as long as humans have existed. But it's recently that we are seeing the need for increased awareness, the need for increased education and advocacy. Okay. So I was to ask a question, and then our brother shared his experience. If you are here in church, and then one day a brother or a sister calls you aside. Let's say a brother calls you aside and says, I'm traumatized. My wife has been insulting me every day for as long as we've been married. Say they're married for 10 years, and a brother comes to you and says, my wife has been insulting me every day for those 10 years. She makes me feel like a worthless man. I feel like I'm very useless, very hopeless. What do I do? What counsel would you give the young man? Any takers? The wife sings nicely in church. The wife does offertory. The wife does all the things that you expect church workers to do. She's very active. That's your approach. Okay. Understood. Okay. Okay. We are here to get everyone's opinion. So when you share, you make someone else also share. Spices in the thing. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Any takers?
Yeah, I think maybe I'll also add to what our brother mentioned, that speaking to people helps a lot. You know, in the Western world, when you go there, their societies are built around more of individualism and my nuclear family. And so when something is happening in the nuclear family, you really don't have people to speak to. And now that you mentioned, I was just reflecting on my own life. And I think there was a time when I was out in school, and that was one of the most difficult times in my life where you are going through something. It's not like you are being persecuted or going through but you simply don't have anybody to talk to. And I recall that in those days, you know, in outside, when you buy your bus ticket, it's for like a month. It doesn't matter how many times you sit in the bus. In as much as you are within the zone, you can climb the bus anytime. So what I used to do, I would just sit in the bus, go to where our church was. There was a Seventh-day Adventist church. That was the only time I could have fun. Go to where the church was. Sometimes you go there in the evening, there's nobody there. I'll just go and sit in the church, get on the bus back to my apartment. To be honest, I stayed outside for that long without ever seeing who my next door neighbor was. Whether the person was a man or a woman, I never saw the person till I left. So I think that the first thing that we should be happy about as Africans is that when something happens, we have people we can run to. Whether your extended family, whether your church family, your friends, people that you can easily go out and speak to. So to your question, if you're with your wife and there's a problem, last week we talked a little bit about it, but after you've spoken to the person and there's no resolution, I think the next person that you can have would be your peers, somebody that you can trust to discuss such an issue with.
Let's preamble. You are the peer.
Okay.
Someone has confided in you. This is the problem I'm facing. How do you help the person?
Okay, so it will depend on what issue, but if it's possible for me to speak to the other person and say that my wife has, or your wife has come to say this about a certain situation. No, but I would assume, or I would speak to the person and ask him, have you discussed this with your partner? To what extent have you discussed with your partner? What has been the outcome from it? Then based on that, I will take the next action in speaking to the person before recommending that the party speaks to any other person.
Let's hear other comments. I'll come to you, Uncle Seth.
You come to me, eh?
Yes. There was someone had a
I'm
mic.
traumatized right now.
I think in the past, I would say in the olden days, during our time when we were young, there was nothing like trauma. I mean, not that it did not exist. Awareness was not. That was also during the era when parental control was stiff. You do what your parents say, period. Democracy was little practiced, little. But during these days, as we became more and more educated, became more free, now we can express ourselves. Now children can express themselves so easily. Sometimes the old people are surprised that children are able to come to them and ask questions or tell them something. Right. So if you are in a home where maybe your wife is subjecting you to, let's say, repeated maybe insults or emotional abuse, let me say, both of you are Christians. The first is to look at the Christian approach to resolving issues. The best would be to talk to her. Pardon me? Willingness. Okay. In that case, you have to look for or look at or find a close relative It can be a family member, and get your complaints over to that person. Somebody who is close enough to her, somebody you think she will listen to. So you find a close person to make a complaint to her about her, and then see how it can be resolved. You try to do it within your circles, the close circles, before, if it still will not get solved, maybe you want to approach maybe a church member. No, first, close family. Resolve within the close family. If it doesn't work out, then you can come to your church family or somebody very close to her within the church that you think she will listen to. So use
And if
these
that
approaches.
fails?
If that fails, of course, alongside, sending a prayer to God should be a constant thing, because God, through the Holy Spirit, can impress upon her, for her even to understand or open her eyes for her to see. Sometimes people are doing things, maybe that is the way she was brought up. Maybe if her mommy at home was in control, most likely she will also want to do the same, thinking that is the norm. So, depending on where she has come from, you need also to get her to understand that things are not working right. So use all from the close family circle before you get to maybe within your church.
Okay.
But what you can do always is to send a prayer to God.
Okay. Thank you. Elder Benebo.
All right. So I think it's a very broad or generalized question.
Yeah.
So it will depend on what the situation is.
Oh,
But generally,
so
let me say that
do you have to specify?
most of the times, it is because there is a root cause of the problem.
Yeah.
Because if it's a couple, they have been happy all this while, and there's a trigger, and one, in this case, the woman, right, is behaving this way.
Yeah.
Certainly, there is a root cause. So, first to interview, and my wife and I have been involved in a situation like this before.
Okay.
So, first is to interview the other party who has, come to consult you, and understand what he may be thinking the problem is. Now, in our situation, the man was thinking that this is what I think is the problem.
Yeah.
And he approached us because the lady has so much respect for us. And we spoke to them. And what the man was thinking was a problem was actually not a problem. The woman rather had other issues that the man never averted his mind to. Okay, so for me, I think that the approach should be that first we must determine what the root cause is, what is causing the other party to be behaving that way. Then, as Elder said, prayer was what helped us resolve this, because the person had much respect for us. In our faces, she said yes. All that we have spoken about, she's going to do it. But when we left, why did you go to report this case to these people that I respect so much? And that rather created a whole mess. But I think that having prayer with them rather resolved it, instead of using our human mind to help them resolve it. But also, there are others who are professional in doing this. And so, when close friends and relatives are not able to resolve the problem, and they are willing to consult someone who has the expertise. We have some of our pastors who have been trained as counselors to resolve some of these issues. And we have, for example, clinical psychologists and other people who are professionally trained to assist. We could consult such people, and they can and help in this regard.
Okay, thank you very much. So these are all very, very good, very, very helpful responses. But the key, hello, yeah, I think the underlying feature is that you never know the extent to which your involvement would blow up the situation. The situation is being contained. The person has approached you about it in a very confused, traumatized state. But your involvement can blow everything out of the water and even worsen things. And so there's always a question mark somewhere. Now, when we are sick physically, when we feel you have a headache or stomach upset or you feel there's something wrong with your body, the first inclination is to maybe get a hospital, get a clinic, or visit the pharmacy, right? There's a willingness to go to the hospital when you are not feeling physically well. Why do you think there's the unwillingness for the average Ghanaian to talk to a psychologist when things are not very well emotionally, mentally, and all that? So 1 minute each so we can...
Because the Ghanaian are cultural people. They are clan people. They are cultural people. And it's like, because they are associated with this person, they are not going to be able to associate with that person. And because that person don't associate with this person, they're not going to associate with that person. And they found a way of them enriching themselves by exploiting others. So they create little groups that they use to exploit the other groups. And that is the reason why you find that there will be situations where they cannot be able to help themselves.
Thank you. Did you have your hand up?
I think there are very few psychologists in Ghana. Very few. And I think most people also would not know where to look for them. Finding them may be a challenge for many people. Lack of information. So the hospitals need to let that be known to the public.
Yeah, so Doc,
Such an engagement.
is it that they charge money for that kind of consultation?
Yeah, but the hospital charges money for physical consultation.
so,
as well.
so that you have answered it right for me. There is
Yes.
the perception that seeing a psychologist, those professionals, you pay more money than the ordinary walk into the hospital and, you know.
You'd be surprised? Thank you. I think that's...
Yes, before you come in, when I was younger, I was surprised to hear that a friend of the family had been referred to the psychiatric hospital. And I think that is also one big, step or stage.
Yeah.
Even on campus, working with students, they do not want to go to the
Counseling center.
No, whatever issue they have. So I think that is the stigma.
Yeah.
Because how would I be referred to, say, the psychiatric hospital for treatment?
Thank you. So I'll make a few quick comments and Uncle Seth will come in.
To answer the question, I'm just thinking, my wife is beating me at home, and then I get up, and I go to the hospital and go and tell them, oh, my wife has been beating me. So charge me money and solve my problem for me. It's like you mentioned, it's not something that we normally would want to take to a hospital or to a psychologist to solve. Because these are not things that one would say, yeah, sometimes it could be physical, but these are not things that one would say, it's so dire that I need to go and pay money for it. That's how we think about it. But, in the Western world, and even in some parts of Ghana or among some people, seeing a psychologist is a very critical thing. Sometimes you watch a movie, and then you see somebody going to lie in a couch, and a psychologist is speaking to him and asking him questions. And sometimes you watch that and you're asking yourself, we have more time too much. They have too much time on their hand. When some of these challenges happen, we just walk to our parents I mean, if you happen to have maybe grandparents, the next thing you know, your mother or your father is coming straight to your house, attack the man or the woman, and tell her, "You are doing this to my son. It is wrong. You should stop." Oftentimes it works, So we don't have the upbringing to say that we are going out with some of those issues. And I think I agree with Elder Asante Mensah on what he mentioned, that we don't even know where to find psychologists. Today, if you ask me, where can I find a good psychologist, I probably will not be able to answer. So I think those are some of the reasons that we have.
A quick comment. I think we assume that even for physical ailments, people will normally go to the hospital. Actually, that's the last resort. For most of us, especially the men, they are likely to take some paracetamol to start with.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, maybe go to the pharmacist. The hospital will be the last place they will go to, even for physical ailments.
Yeah.
So talk about emotional, whatever, that one, it will resolve itself. So you allow it time.
Time heals, nah.
Yes, I think that most of these issues, they are very sensitive things.
Okay.
So it's difficult to talk to someone about it. And before you can do that, it should be someone you trust. It's difficult to talk to a stranger about certain things. So you would rather decide to keep it to yourself and solve it. Because right now, me personally, I don't even trust friends. So I won't even talk to my friend about it.
Okay.
So I'd rather keep it to myself.
Let me start from where you've ended. Don't you think it's easier to trust a stranger than a close friend?
Yes.
If you talk to a psychologist, say you're in Accra, you don't want anyone in Accra to know. So you go to Kumasi and book a session, talk to a psychologist. What are the chances that the psychologist speaking to in Kumasi will go about spreading you Na's troubles?
I agree. And there was a time that, in fact, so recently, I didn't even know we had psychologists in the hospitals. I didn't know about that.
Okay.
But there was a time some years back that I tried using a psychologist, a private one. I went for like 2 sessions and I stopped because I didn't understand why I was paying that much to go and talk to someone about my problems. So I stopped going.
Okay. Okay. Oh, fair point. So you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised to know that for as little as 30 cedis, you could have a 1-hour session with a psychologist here in Ghana, here in Accra, in a government hospital. Yeah, but the fact that it's a government hospital doesn't make the person a psychologist. The access. Oh, there are no queues. So I worked at the Accra Psychiatric Hospital. My time there was very, very interesting. I was in the clinical psychology unit. Very simple procedure. You come to the OPD, you say you want to talk to a psychologist, they refer you there, then they'll book you to the next available date. That's it. You come at that time for 1 hour, you talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. If you want to come again, why not? Now, the issue is perceived lack of accessibility. I think there's accessibility. We perceive there isn't accessibility. And so it takes less than a 10-minute drive from here to Ridge Hospital. At the Ridge Hospital, there's a functioning clinical psychology unit. There are clinical psychologists that you can see. You work on you go there, today is Saturday, you go on Monday, 9 a.m., you can see a clinical psychologist there. You go to Accra Psychiatric Hospital, you can see them. 37, Pantine, any government hospital you can think of, they should have at least one clinical psychologist there. And the sessions are not expensive. Ridge, the maximum you can pay is 97 cedis. It won't go beyond 100 cedis. And so it's the socialization. We've been socialized to stigmatize against people who take their issues to such professionals. And so when I say I have a session at the Accra Psychiatric Hospital, you begin thinking something is going on in my head. Why Psychiatric Hospital? Why? But it's a hospital. If you take the Accra Psychiatric there, it's a hospital. I'm going to the hospital.
The word is psyche. When you mention the word psyche alone.
You don't like the word psyche?
Yeah.
It's a hospital. It's a hospital. And so okay. Yeah, it's a hospital. And so it starts from us, the few of us here, knowing this, telling others about it. And so we break the cycle of misinformation, the cycle of the false understanding that there's a lack of accessibility or that the services are expensive and all that. And so on this day, even as we discuss End It Now, ending violence, ending abuse, and then inform ourselves about trauma and getting the right keys as members of Bethel to help our brothers and sisters who are going through trauma. What I'd like to leave with us, if for nothing at all, is that one, pray. We are Christians, and so you know, like Christ prayed, like the prophets of old prayed, prayer answers all things. And so pray. Now, in your relations with people, be non-judgmental. People are going through things. If I come and confide in you and the next day I hear you tell someone about it, chances are that the next time I have a similar situation or next time I'm going through something, I won't talk to you about it because I know it's going to get to the third person and everyone in the church is going to know about it. Once you admit that you yourself, you have issues, when people come to you with their issues, don't go broadcasting it. Receive it in confidence. Just let your ears hear, and that's it. Your mouth does not have to say it. Even if you have no help to offer the person, be the last resort. Let the person say it to your hearing, and let it end there. Don't be the transmitter, don't be the broadcaster, and go about telling people. And then, help is available. The example I have just given, in less than 10 minutes, you can get to Ridge, you can get to Accra Psychiatric Hospital, you can get to these facilities and get help when you need them. The point is, don't bottle it up. When you keep it up and you don't talk about it, and you don't talk about it, you don't talk about it, one day it will explode. And that one day, the explosion can be very fatal. You can decide to say if you've had enough, you write a note, you can get some lethal, whatever that you take, and then end things. God will not want that his children, who he has bought with a price, his royal priesthood, will end their lives this way without meeting the destinies or without fulfilling the destinies that he has ordained for them. And so, in as much as we've been commissioned to go out there and preach, let us have sound mind. Let us help our brothers and sisters have sound mind, be able to overcome their trauma so that together we become better Christians, we become better disciples, and tell others about the love of Christ. So how much time do we have? We'll take a few questions, comments, and then we'll run out. Okay. Please all come in. Now listen.
Okay, so I think when we started, we didn't actually talk about what abuse is. Because I think in our society, our Ghanaian society, we've normalized a lot of things that are abusive as normal.
Yeah.
It starts from when people are kids. In our society, parents will be insulting their kids anyhow.
Yeah.
And then the children will grow up and behave in certain ways. They don't even know they are traumatized. And then people would judge them based on how they are behaving, not knowing that it is something that happened in the past.
Yeah.
So I think we need to talk about things that are abusive. And there's a lot that happens, but then people don't talk about it because they see it as normal.
Yeah. I think the topic, thank you for bringing this up. You can pass the mic to the next person. Let me just come in briefly. So the topic is very, very broad. You can't, in an hour or an hour and a half, touch on all the possible boxes. But then the point is, we are mothers and fathers seated here. If you learn all these things and you still go home and you abuse your children, you abuse your grandchildren verbally, 20, 30 years down the line, when they become adults like yourself, they'll do the same to their children because that's what they've seen you do. That's what they've heard you do. And so if that's what our parents did to us and it's traumatizing us now, we should break the cycle. We shouldn't continue. We shouldn't make it continue and make the future generations worse off than we are presently. So kindly make your point.
Yeah, so I'm trying to draw the line between the question I just asked. Because I remember, when you have children, sometimes you need to shout, like, put it down. And then the child will not mind you. But then the moment you say, put it down, then the child puts it down. Then you hear the mother saying, why are you shouting? You know, when you shout, it's like it will have an effect on the child. And then maybe psychologically, that thing has an effect on you that, okay, indeed, let me now try, put it down. Even if they don't put it down, you let it go. And then you say, well, as they are growing, the Lord himself will do his work. All because you want to avoid traumatization, or you want to avoid a situation where this child grows up and then might say, my daddy or my mommy doesn't like me. And then the child grows up and then, hey, why? You know, he or she does what he or she wants. Haven't you failed as a parent? Haven't we failed as a church? Because even there are some of these children, you can't talk about them. Even though you see them misbehaving in the church, they are not your children. And the moment you shout at them, or the moment you try to instill that corrective measure, the understanding becomes different. So how do we reconcile these things that we live with every day?
I think it's a line that has to be drawn. It's a line that has to be drawn. It's one thing to be abusive. It's another thing to be assertive. And so you should be able to stamp your authority in the home as the parent, as the mother, as the father. And I'm sure you can do that without being abusive. You don't have to hit your child to get instructions carried out. You don't have to be very insulting or always insult your child to get the instructions done. The Bible says, spare the rod and spoil the child. So there are times you'd have to exercise the rod. But then should that be the norm? Should that always be your go-to? Do you always have to carry the cane before you get things done? And so I feel like there's a line that has to be drawn. And as a parent, you'd have to be able to discern which line not to cross so as to affect your child in time to come. Ma.
Na me pese me bisa question say. Ube den kra na wahu say. Bibi nkoye ewa wadwe mu.
Okay. All right. How do you realize something is off? Do you want to answer?
So you add it to it.
Okay. Please ask.
Some few years back, someone did something to me, and I was really, really hurt. Very, very hurt. And it's like I withdrawn, and it affected me so badly. Yeah. It affected me so badly. And I wake up, I can't sleep. 2, 3, I come down, sit down quietly, and sometimes weep. Yeah. Because I didn't know how to go about it. But my husband realized there was something wrong. I wasn't very happy. Yeah. But personally, all I knew was I was not happy. But in my mind, I didn't know something was going on. But I knew I'm not happy. Okay. So he took it upon himself. I think he realized I wake up. And so he started chasing me. So when I wake up, I think twice or something, he came, sat down, prayed, spoke to me. Honestly, he spoke to me, comparing things and subtracting and adding things. Then, gradually, I realized I'm not well. Honestly, after a while, I started recovering. Because when he started talking to me, I realized I really need to let things go. Yeah. Then after a while, I realized I felt within me, I wasn't well by then. Because I saw recovering coming. Change. And so sometimes you can't even tell, unless somebody alerts you. Yeah. Maybe you are going this way. Have you realized something is happening to you? Have you realized this is going wrong? Then you may come to your senses and say, yes, it's true. Yeah. Apart from that, sometimes it will go on and on if no one alerts you. To go on and on, all you realize is,
okay, thank you very much. So I'll put the two together. How do you recognize that something is wrong? the most telling symptom or sign is withdrawal. If the person used to be very active, very much involved in church activity, and suddenly, when they are singing and all, she's seated in the corner. She's just there. Someone who used to lead out and is always very active when they are doing the action songs and all. Now, for a while, she comes to church and she just sits in the corner. She doesn't involve herself in what's going on. That's the first. That's the most telling one. It's very, very obvious that people may be going through something when they begin to withdraw from things that they enjoy doing and see things he likes doing. Nyama or pay and go and say, Nancy, or yeah, a man in Egyptium, and see, you see withdrawal. And then two sides. You can begin to eat a lot or lose appetite. So if you are someone who likes food already, now you realize food isn't appealing to you. You don't have appetite for food. You can go a whole day and say you are not hungry. 2 days, you're not fasting. You are saying you are not hungry. But the typical you, if you're not eating 2 bowls of kinky in the afternoon, you are not okay. But here's the case: days are passing and you don't feel the urge to eat. When you eat in very small quantity. That's a question mark that make people think there's something wrong. On the other side, you don't eat a lot, but now all of a sudden you're always hungry. You always want to eat. You always want to get food into your system. And so each of the two extremes can raise a question mark that something is wrong with you. And then sleep patterns. And so if you always sleep at 9 or 10, but now all of a sudden, 12 a.m., 1 a.m., you cannot sleep. You're not doing anything. You're just on the bed. You cannot sleep. And then it continues for 1 week, for 2 weeks. Before you realize it's a month, and then your sleep pattern is changing. It raises a question mark that there's something that may be going wrong. And so once you are thinking, the nerves, the messengers in the brain, the nerves send signals around. So once you are thinking, the signals are being sent around. If you don't want to express it and so you suppress the trauma, the signals are still sending, but then you are suppressing it, you're not allowing it to come out. Eventually, the signals there'll be 2 minutes signals being sent, and now all of a sudden, one day, it will just fire, and then you'd have an outburst. You insult someone or you do something that is very unlike you. And so when the signs are coming and you don't pay attention to the signs, eventually when the brain has had enough, the outburst would surely come. And like a balloon that bursts, you don't have no control as to how things would go. To add to what Mom says, the point is for your people close to you to pay attention, to know whether there are changes. For a lot of people, when these changes occur, they themselves do not realize that something is going on or it's that serious. It takes the next person, the brother, the mother, father, or the spouse, the husband or wife, to know that my wife is changed, my husband is behaving differently. So once you note that difference, you take steps to get help for that person. It's very, very important. Hello, sir.
I attended a middle school where discipline was topmost. And after school, I realized in life that we didn't miss Sunday church service. It was compulsory. I realized that a lot of our schoolmates and even classmates stopped attending church. And some never...
After I left school?
After school.
Okay.
Maybe they continued in secondary school and elsewhere, but church was out.
Okay.
And I've noticed also that homes where discipline includes seeing to it that when it's time for church, you must be there. When the children leave home, maybe to secondary school or to university, when they come back, they have nothing to do with church.
Yeah.
What is the cause of this attitude?
Interesting question. So this appears to be a trend. Yes, you can comment on it. It appears to be a trend. And so there's a saying that when you force people to do the good thing, not out of their own will, but you're forcing them to do it, when they have their own will, they won't get close. They'll go the very, very opposite way. And so if they're not doing it because they want to, but because they are forced, they are dragged to it, when they have the means to be on their own, it wouldn't even cross their mind to go and do it because their brain has never wanted to do it in the first place. And so they are repelled. They are repulsed to the idea of doing that thing that my mother or father has always been forcing me to do. Now you wanted to say something?
Yes, I would add to that. I think back then, it was very autocratic. They tell you, do this, do that.
Yeah.
They don't explain to you, do it because of this or don't do it because of that. But right now, in general, I think human beings, we don't like being forced to do things.
Yeah.
Something you would do normally, if you are forced to do it, you won't do it.
Yeah.
So I think that people need to understand why they are told to do something or why they are not supposed to do it. Once they understand it themselves, they would or would not do it.
Okay.
So I think that's where the problem comes from.
Okay. Now, if as a parent now, when you were a youngster, when you were a young person, your parents did this to you and you didn't like, as you're parenting your children now, you shouldn't do that to them. It's counterintuitive that the things your parents did to you that you felt you were forced, it was autocratic, you didn't like. Now that you have children, you're taking care of them, you want to do the exact same things to them.
Yes, I wanted to make this point that I've realized that it is not easy because that is what you know.
Okay.
No, personally.
But you know it, so I don't like it.
Yes, I know it is not right, but that is what I know.
Okay.
You understand? So although it's counterintuitive, you speak differently. But that is all I was used to being screamed at. So you realize that in your home, also screaming at your children. You see, so
the cycle continues.
So the cycle continues. So there needs to be a breaking point because I've heard that children who saw their mothers and their fathers beat their mothers grew up to be wife beaters.
Normalize it, yes.
Yes, but then when they were young, they didn't like it one bit. But because that is what they know. So I think that we have to find a point of breaking the cycle.
So that's the point of the intervention. And so you can't by magic break the cycle. It's these forums, these workshops, these trainings that get people to rethink their actions again. If you are sitting here today and you're doing something to your child that your parents did to you that you did not like, I don't think it's fair to your child that they pay for the things that your parents did to you. Even if you are saying that's the only thing you know it's not right. You know, there's a Japanese saying that when you do something wrong or you get something done wrongly, don't discard it. It's just one way of not doing it right. And so when you are redoing the thing again, don't do it that way because when you did it the first time, it was wrong. So even if you don't know what the new thing is, at least you know what the old thing is and that it's bad. And so you should make sure that you find a new way that is not it. So, I mean, no one goes to school to become a parent. You get married and then life happens and then you have a child and then you figure things out yourself. And so there's no school that teaches you to be a parent. What that means is that every parent has to find their own way of bringing up their child, has to find their own way of raising their children. And like Elder is saying, you are used to what your parents did. Here's the case you did not like it. What that means is that you have the responsibility of learning extra how to get the best out of your children and not repeat the things that yours did to you when you were younger.
Whose responsibility is to allow you to see the clinical psychologist when you go to the hospital? Can you go there, say, after you've checked your BP and all the clinicals are checked, said, I want to see the clinical psychologist. When they ask you, why do you want to see the clinical? They won't. Oh, okay, so I can just come to the hospital, pay my consultation and the rest, and tell them I want to see the clinical psychologist. And they will book me. Oh, okay.
Very simple. If you go to, so they don't work on weekends, but on a Monday morning, 8 o'clock, you go to Rich, you go to the OPD. You ask them that you want to the clinical psychology unit. It's on the 3rd floor. They'll just show you, go to the 3rd floor, go and introduce yourself, say you want to see the psychologist. They look for an appointment date, like an open slot. They tell you to come on so and so dates. You come, just go and pay your consultation fee, go and pay whatever charge it is, and then you come see them. It's that straightforward.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions, any concerns for you, please?
I quite remember.
Oh, sorry.
When I was baptized to this church.
Yeah.
I told my father that because of Ellen White's books that he has been reading, it has changed my mind. Then he said, so what do I do? Okay, then making further studies, I found the truth and joined the church.
Okay.
What happened was that my father was not on good terms with me for leaving my
Are you Methodist or Presby?
No, Presby to S.D.A.
Okay.
He said, these people are abeku meme. I'm a Belgian.
Okay.
Oh, Daddy, why do you speak to me like that? In fact, I'm expecting something good from you. In fact, it was a push and pull, me and my father. So I left him. He went home and nursed an idea. Said that he was not feeling fine, but he wanted to go to psychiatric hospital so that I assist him. I said, but you are saying that I'm not thinking well. So I have to join you and we all go. When we reach there, not knowing that he has gone to make arrangements so that they
they'll admit you.
Whether I have a clear, then
that's a very good tactic.
Just remember that I'm telling you this story.
That's a very good tactic.
In those days, it was, we have, the media.
Yeah.
All departments, they are our friends.
Yeah.
And Dr. Sari has been one of my best friends.
Okay.
Then he said, Antipat, is old man not well? I said, yes. He said I should accompany him to hospital. He said, I'm not mad, but I brought you rather to the hospital. In fact, since that time, I've never had love for my father.
Okay. Is it still alive?
I'm reading Ellen White's stories.
Okay.
The series 1, 2, 3, Desire of Ages, Patriarchs and Kings and all that. Yeah. He was having it in his wardrobe. So I started reading them. Then Dr. Sari said, okay, no quarrel here. I will settle the matter. Then he took Ulman to a different side. Then he left me and they came back. He said, look, Daddy, something is worrying your mind. Not knowing that he has a boil. That is worrying him. So through me, that boil was cured.
Interesting.
In this case, if your own father, mother, or any person who comes to you and be looking at you, because he's saying, let people look at me that, oh, this church, my daughter is lost. He has taken the lead.
Yeah.
So over to us.
Interesting. Okay, I think we'll take final comments and then we'll wrap up. Any questions, any contributions? So we wrap up. Okay. What have we learned? I'll take two. Okay.
Started with 10 years of abuse.
Yeah.
And I believe there are a lot in our churches.
Yeah.
Lots in our churches. Especially, I can't say with the younger ones, even with the older ones.
Yeah.
They have challenges. But because of church, we are afraid to talk about it. But like you rightly said, then you suffer for it. Because now it's like this person is trying to make you less of a person.
Okay.
Trying to frustrate you so much. For me, I see those people as cowards. Anybody who insults the wife or the husband is a coward. Because instead of sitting down to talk about things, you turn it into insult and beatings.
Yeah.
You are a coward. Because you have your colleagues outside, you can go and fight them.
Yeah.
You can go and beat them, but you can't fight them, you come to fight me, then you're a coward. And being a coward, you said I shouldn't move out. I should stay in the house with you. And that's where I think last week we had a program here. That's where sometimes sexual doesn't come into play and it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Because there's no joy in the house. And if there's no peace or joy in the house, how do you enjoy this kind of things?
Okay.
And so I think as psychologists in our churches, because we have them in our churches, whether we like it or not.
Yes.
And so please do educate us.
Yeah. And the point is, you don't get a platform you don't get every week, every month to talk about this. So it's in such programs, such days that you get opportunity to talk about these things. But then as adults here, we know all these things. We just tend to blind ourselves to it and then just turn a blind eye to them. But then these are things that are breaking people's homes. These are things that are breaking people's lives. And if you're interested in people's well-being, we should be interested in talking about these things and then getting people help. You'll be surprised about the amount of help that people need and the amount of help that people will be willing to seek if they knew about these things. And so let's be messengers and then carry the message out. Yes, please.
Sene ma Gloria kaye no se wo sa akyerɛkyerɛfoɔ yi bi wɔ yasafo mu a mmɔmmɔden asɛ mo bebiem na mo ama kwan ama yɛ atumi aba mo nkyɛn ɛsiane sɛ nneɛma bebree na yɛrekɔ mu yɛreka no ne yɛka mmɔfra awofoɔ ankasa ɛnam ɔhaw mu nanso ɛtɔ da a na ɛyɛ den sɛ wode wodɛ mu asɛm ɛbɛkɔ abɔnten ɛsiane sɛ yɛankasa yɛngye yɛn ho nni nti mommie mu momma yɛnhu ɔmo a yɛbɛtumi akɔ ɔmo nkyɛn ɛne ɔmo akasa ɛsiane sɛ ɔhaw ɛdɔɔso ɛwɔ ɛdan mu ɔhaw ne amanneɛ ɛrekɔ so wɔ dan mu onyame pɛ ɛna kura nipa mu nka ebi a sɛnea obi kan sɛ nka ate afa so nti yɛsrɛ yɛn mpanimfoɔ paa sɛ mommoa yɛn ne yɛnya baabi a yɛbɛtumi aka yɛn nsɛm ama yaw a ɛwɔ yɛn mu no ebi atumi apie na ankɔte amfa so. Amen.
Thank you. So to answer Auntie's question, like Elder mentioned earlier, there aren't as many clinical psychologists in the country as there should be. We are over 30 million Ghanaians. The psychologists are not up to 100,000. And so the ratio is like one psychologist to over 1,000 Ghanaians. That's a lot. And in Accra alone, where they have, say, 3 to 4 million people, that's about 400 psychologists, or thereabouts. And so the numbers are not there. And so what we can do as a people to be a listening ear, like I mentioned earlier, James says, be swift to hear, but slow to speak. Be willing to hear about your colleagues' concerns, about your sister's concerns, about your brother-in-the-Lord's concerns, but be slow to speak. Don't be in a hurry to go and tell others about it. Most times, people just want the listening ear. I just want someone to listen to what I'm going through. I just want to voice it out. And so if I trust that this elder will listen but will not speak, then I can always confide in him. Even if he has no help to offer me, just the fact that I've spoken to him and I know that it has ended there, it won't go and then spread. I'm more confident to talk about it, whilst we recommend and encourage people to seek professional help. And so in our local setting, in the absence of these professionals, let's confide in each other, believing that ourselves, you, the brother or the sister, if someone comes to you, you will keep quiet, so that if you are facing troubles yourself, when you talk to the next person, you believe that the person would also keep quiet. And so the cycle ends. It doesn't continue and it becomes a gossip that keeps moving around in the church. So that's something that as Christians and Adventists, we should do. Because I think it's hypocritical that you come and stand here and sing all the nice songs, but then when a brother is going through a trouble and then they confide in you, you end up telling someone else. It's just not nice that we'll do that in the house of the Lord. But then there's help available. I don't know if there's any psychologist here at Bethel, but then I'm available. I'm in the district, so I'm very much close. If you want to reach out to me, you can get my contacts from Doc or now, or any of the young people around here can get in touch with
me. I noticed that, it's good Pastor is here. I noticed that when we're talking about abuse, we were talking more of things we have, perceived to be serious issues, like beating, shouting at children, and what have you. But I think even in the church, we abuse. We abuse because sometimes we give time for Sabbath school. We don't honor it. The church is supposed to close around, let's say, 12:30. 1:30 to 2, we are still in church. And sometimes people get, these things affect people. That, once the church will close, I prefer a church that will close at 11 o'clock or 11:30. So I think that we should look at it in its entirety. Yeah. We should look at these things in its entirety, because there are people that have respect for time. Yeah. So the moment you tell them it's 11:30, 11:30 it is. Yeah. But if you keep going beyond and all those things, as Christians, we must have a way of doing things. Yeah. Because we tend to be looking at the bigger issues. And my wife has beaten me, my husband has beaten me, I'm shouting at children. No. Okay. There are people who are simply not coming to church because the trauma, this is another trauma I'm trying to come up with. Okay. Because like you said, these things were there, but we didn't have names for them. Yes. Yeah. So please, let's
So let me give a quick example. At Prince Emmanuel, we say we close at 12. We try to close at 12. There are people in the church, when it's 12 on the dot, and the preacher is still preaching, you see they begin to check they're checking their watch, they're checking their phone, and they begin fidgeting. Some people can even excuse themselves. They just pick up their bags and then they're out. As I agree with you, there are people who, if you say it's 12 that you are closing, they don't want to entertain any extenuating circumstance. At 12, they want to be out of the church. You have to respect that, because you said you close at 12 or you close at 12:30. And so I do agree that's some kind of trauma. So.
Add a little to what you just said. They want to leave at the exact time. But do they come on the exact time? That's my question. Church is supposed to start, our school is supposed to start at 9 o'clock. At 9 o'clock, there will be nobody in this room.
It is an abuse.
So what do we do to it? What do we have to do?
They are abusing the Sabbath school time.
We are abusing ourselves in a particular in a way, because I know I have to be here at 9 o'clock. I didn't come at 9, but Sabbath school is supposed to close at 10 o'clock. I will come at 10 o'clock. By then, Sabbath school is rather about to start, like this morning. I didn't come on time, expecting to meet Sabbath school halfway. It was by that time that Sabbath school is going to start at 10 o'clock. Oh, you left home at 10 o'clock, wishing to come and meet Sabbath school at the with hand. You come and Sabbath school is now going to start. Now who calls them? If you were here at 9, Sabbath school will be here, to start at 9. But to stay at home to 10 o'clock, and you want to come and meet the Sabbath school at 10 o'clock when it is closed, when you have not come to study the Sabbath school. So we have to be very careful. We are all here abusing ourselves in a way. So the change has to come from each one of us before we progress. Amen.
That is very, very true.
Yeah, we are abusing each other.
I think we need to apologize to our resource person today, because he was here, I think, from about 3 exactly or 2 something. And how many of us were in the room? And so an abuse there. And so we need to apologize.
I think mine is a bit different from what we are discussing now. I have a grandson. Since his infancy, cartoons that he has watched, he can narrate incidents and verbatim. But school book, it doesn't go in. What's the problem?
What do you think is the problem? What do you think is the problem? So, a lot of these cartoons have catchy lines. And so, let's say they've said the parts over and over and over again. The child has watched it over and over and over again. And so it's registered. And so the school system must be in such a way that what you are learning should be in a mode that will make the child interested in learning it. Of course, the cartoons are of interest to them. There's something about it they like that makes them so engrossed, makes them willing to learn and be able to say it verbatim. In a similar way, the school should be able to implement a system that makes the learning enjoyable for the child so they can be willing to go over it over and over again and it becomes a part of them.
It's fear. It's just fear. That's why there's a limit. So, and that's what I wanted to contribute to say, there is a problem in the church between us Christians. God wants us to be happy here on earth. That's why God designed earth like this. But we have trauma and we have stress that occurs as a result of us humans living as communal humans, communal beings. So we have to live together. That is where problem comes from. Now, when you face shock and trauma, it's just because you put yourself in the situation and because you did not stop, think, and count. So to avoid the panic and shock, rather than shouting, when you listen to whatever is the information, you have to work yourself and build yourself to that level where when you listen to whatever information is coming to you, you should try to understand it first and think, then count 1, 2, 3 before you react. Avoid reacting negatively to every situation. To every situation, your first action should be a positive action. I believe that this helps cure the trauma that comes after, because it's inevitable and it is fate, not faith, fate. So it's part of our life, the way we are designed and the way God is sculpting us out for our purpose. So we go through these challenges. We call it challenges. They are not challenges. They are routes which we have to go through to vindicate God's glory on earth. And it is us being positive and standing on the good side and just doing the good thing as a result of whatever happens. And most of the time, like we're talking about trauma and shock, it will be a negative thing, a bad thing that would hurt us. But the first approach should be a positive reaction. So with parents, like he was explaining, like, oh, he would say, don't touch it, put that down, put that down. And the other aspect that he could say, like, come on, don't touch that. Stop. Now, it's two things. Time. When they say put that down, they don't want to go through it. They don't want to think. Now, this attitude that you can think, reflect, count 1, 2, 3, that is what brings you to, excuse me, come. And you can talk to them, little man, little woman. You call them by their name, sir, Mrs., whatever you call them, and say, the ruler you're using or the pen you're using can hurt you. It can wound you, or you can fall and it hurt you. So you have to put it down. So you will give the explanation why. Because most of the times we just attack, we just rush into it, we just do whatever we're doing to, to clear our minds off and move to the next objective aspect or work or whatever. But it is for you to be able to discuss these things and talk about it and explain so you can have an understanding. The person you're communicating with can have an understanding, because without understanding, there is a limitation. And now we are looking at Africa, how Africa, we are still buying technology from Europe, we are still buying technology from America, France, European countries. Why? Because we have a stagnation in mental development. Like he was talking about mental health. There's a stagnation in mental development because of the aspect of fear.
Can you wrap up so we finish up?
Right. Yeah, so let me wrap up. So the development, stagnation in development in Africa is a whole, and it starts from the church that we can heal this problem, because God wants us to be able to live happy now without problems. The stagnation, we have to heal it from the church.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Time is fast spent. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your questions and your suggestions. Thank you that this wasn't a monologue, but you've been very, very interactive. You've given your very experienced insights, and I'm very grateful for being a part of this. And I think the takeaways should be that we should be different people. We should be different from our past, different from our parents, and the trauma that they instilled in us, we shouldn't inflict that on our children. And once we know that trauma can be very deadly, we should put ourselves in a situation where we can offer help to people who are trying to get out of such situations. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Prince.
One suggestion.
Okay, sure.
I think from what we have discussed here, we are aware that psychologists are very few compared to the numbers that need their help. I would suggest that the Ministry of Health or the hospitals should kind of have programs to inform the public, television, radio, to let them know of where to find psychologists, what psychologists do, what services they offer, so that people, and direct people to the hospitals. Thank you.
Thank you again. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here, Prince. And we hope to see you again. Thank you all so much for coming here too. I won't say much. I think we've learned a lot. So we'll rise and then make use of hymn 522. My hope is built on nothing less. Let's be on our feet, please. Jesus' blood and righteousness, I dare not trust this. Sinking sand, all of the ground is sinking sand. Darkness seems to veil his face. I rest on his unchanging grace. In every high and stormy gale, my anchor holds within the veil. On Christ the solid rock I stand. All of the ground is sinking sand. All of the ground is sinking sand. His oath is covenant and blood supports me in the whelming flood. When all around my soul gives way, then is all my hope and stay. On Christ the solid rock I stand. All of the ground is sinking sand. All of the ground is sinking sand. When he shall come with trumpet sound, oh, may I then in him be found, dreading his righteousness faultless to stand before the throne. On Christ the solid rock I stand. All other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. Let's please take our seats. We invite Pastor for the Vesper service.